Hello friends, today we're going to talk a little bit about instancing. So instancing is one of my very favorite tricks in TouchDesigner, and it is a fantastic way to draw a lot of geometry very efficiently, as well as get into some really creative ways of driving our art and our media based off of different types of data. So let's get started. I'm going to be using a geometry rendering network, so I'm going to need a light, a camera, a piece of geometry, and a render top, but I want to be able to switch out what piece of geometry is being rendered really easily. So I'm actually going to start with the SOP that I'm going to use. So I'm going to double click in my network and I'm going to grab a box. Just remember, whenever you are instancing, whatever piece of geometry goes into your actual geo component, that is going to be the piece of geometry that is drawn multiple different times. So I'm going to take this box. I know that I want to actually reduce it till it's about 0.1. Awesome. And then I'm gonna, on a trackpad, you can tap with two fingers, or if you have a mouse, you can right click, and I'm gonna grab my geo. Awesome. And then I'm just gonna finish up my render network with a camera and a light. And then a render. And then just in case I want to do any post processing, I'm going to do Alt N, drop a null, and then that will be what I end up viewing if I start working in top space. So the most important thing when we talk about instancing, I'm going to come over to this instance page. I'm going to turn instancing on. Nothing is going to happen. We're going to talk about why. Is all of these different fields here. We can control all of these different things by any source of data, any channel that we would like, right? But the thing that we have to make sure of is that whatever channel we send into these fields has the same number of points on it as every other channel. So we can drive this using a channel that has pixels. We can drive it using a channel that has samples, like an audio file if we want. But as long as it has the same number of channels, that's what's most important, because however many data points you send here, that's how many instances the geo then thinks that you want to draw. So if you send 6 here and 7 there, it's going to draw 7 and then not know what to do for the TX of the last one because it doesn't have data on that one. It's going to get really confused. It's going to start drawing your geometry on top of itself, doing transformations that you don't want. So that is the most important thing, is to make sure that we always have the proper number of samples on all of our channels that are coming in, right? So there's a lot of different stuff that we can control, right? That's pretty exciting. So if we look here, this gives me the idea, okay, maybe I can draw this same box, right? I can draw this box, but in a bunch of different places. I have this TXTYTZ page. Well, like, what can I do with that? So a really great way to get into this, a really easy thing to understand, is I'm going to try to draw a bunch of different boxes in the shape of a different SOP. So let's say a sphere. Let's just say that because that's nice and clear. So I'm going to come into my SOPs. I'm going to grab a sphere. Beautiful. Here's my sphere. So what I want to do is I want to use the information that this sphere already knows. This sphere knows how to draw itself. I just have to ask it how, right? So the way that I can do that, because this is TouchDesigner and everything is accessible to you and it's amazing, is on a trackpad. Again, if you tap with two fingers on the connector and then you go to your chops, it will only show you the chops that are available to be connected to a SOP. Oh no, I have to drop a null first. Oh no, I'm gonna hit Alt N. Beautiful. Woo! That was a close one. Okay, now I'm gonna do that and I'm gonna grab a SOP 2. And look at that! It's all of the point information that we wanted to draw this sphere with anything that we wanted. We could draw it with boxes, we could draw it with whatever, right? So I'm actually going to drop a merge because generally when I am doing instancing, I know that I tend to use a bunch of different chops and then want to use those to control different things. With the new update, if you look at the instance page, you can have a default instance operator, but you actually can have different operators for every single one of these fields. Personally, though, I know myself. I know that I like to switch things around and maybe like control different things from maybe I have something here that I think I want to be the rotation controller, but actually I want it to be something else later and I want to be able to change my mind. So I'm gonna do it the old-fashioned way, but you do not have to because this is TouchDesigner and you can do whatever you would like. So I'm going to drag this final merge operator into the default instance op here. And then now I have all of my points in order. I can see what they are called, T, X, T, Y, T, Z. That makes sense. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to tell my geo For the translate x for all of your instances, I would like you to look inside of this operator, merge one, for the channel that is called tx. Awesome. And then ty for ty. Beautiful. And tz. And look at that. I'm going to double tap here and view this. And I'm going to hit H to home it. Look, you guys, that was so fast and easy. Like, we just made a sphere out of cubes. Basically just doing nothing. That is really exciting. And the great thing about instancing is what it's saying to the computer is, hey, I know that this is a lot of geometry that you're worried that you have to draw, but what I'm going to do is tell you it's the same box every time. So don't worry about redrawing this box. Just worry about where and how. And that's so much faster and so much more efficient for your machine. It means that you can have a lot more freedom. And we can also start using these channels to do interesting, expressive things, right? So for example, if I wanted to drive the color of each one of these squares, because you can control the color individually just as you can control the individual position, the individual rotation for every single box, you can control the individual color too. And you don't have to just drive it off of color, right? I don't have any tops here that could be controlling color. If I wanted to, I could drive the color off of the point positions, right? All I would have to do that is to send these three channels to the color channel. So I could tell, hello, Mr. Red channel, and I want you to look for your information on the channel that is called TX, cool, TY, and TZ. And look at that! Like, this is such a powerful tool also for teaching. This helped me understand GLSL so much clearer because look, this makes sense, right? So the point that is the highest red value, my red is being mapped to my TX. That means it should be the point with the highest X value, which it is. But then the point with the lowest X value, it's actually a negative X value. Well, that should have the least amount of red. In terms of colors, RGB, right, the value with the least amount of red would be a blue value, and this is blue right here, right? It's same with green. If we see up here, the point with the highest green should be the point with the highest Y, because I'm putting my Y on my green channel, and that makes sense. That's how it looks. But the point with the least amount of green should be down here, and it is. There's red down there. See, this is such an incredible thing in terms of visualizing and driving things off of different data. We made colors out of points. That's fun. Okay, so some last things to get into is just an idea of basic animation maybe, right? So I can both control each box individually, but I can also control the whole piece of geometry as a group, right? So if I were to take this geo and I were to rotate it and say abs for absolute time, dot seconds, I'm going to say times 10 just because it looks a good rate. Look, the whole thing will spin together. You can see the entire piece of geometry is rotating because all of these transforms affect the whole collection of boxes themselves, right? But if I wanted to animate the individual pieces of the individual boxes, I would have to go and add another channel of control. So how would I do that, right? I said that I have to make sure that it has the right number of points. So I have to take something that is not coming from this sphere and make it have the proper number of points no matter what, right? So how am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to come, first of all, let me double tap in here and just grab a way to get new, fresh, random points, right? So I'm going to grab a noise because whenever we need random points, a noise function is a great way to get them. And then actually, so I could alter this noise to make sure it had the proper number of points, but just to make absolutely sure, I'm going to use this trick that I learned at the summit this year. I'm going to come off the end of it and I'm going to grab a trail chop. Awesome. And in this trail chop, I'm going to come to this handy dandy resample function. I'm going to say, hello, resample. I would like for you to be the same as the operator called null2, right? Because that's this guy, dot num points. Boom. Amazing. So I now know that no matter what, I have the exact proper number of channels of control here coming off of this trail, right? I have one for every box, one for every instance, and that's what I need. So now I have this nice little random thing of rotations, but if I look at this, I can see that this is going from -1 to 1, and that's not really what I want because I want this to be a rotation. So I want it to be in degrees, somewhere more like 0 to 360, right? So a great way to do that conversion is I'm going to come off the end. I'm going to grab a map. Beautiful. I'm going to go to range, and from the range, instead of -1 to 1, I'm going to say 0 to 360. Beautiful. Okay, awesome. And then actually, I'm also going to come into this noise. I'm going to go to channel, and I'm going to rename this spin. Great. So that now, as you can see, it is called spin because Jan 1 is just not very specific. So now I'm going to take this math, I'm going to bring it into my merge. This merge is the instance control-e merge. And then when I go into my geo, I'm going to look for these channels that control the rotation, and I'm going to say, hello, rotation. Let's have it spin on Z, shall we? I'm going to say, hello, rotation. I would like for you to look for your data off of the channel that is called spin. Boom. Look at that. So we can see that the geo is rotating by itself because we still have this animation going. And also the individual boxes are rotating themselves based off of this noise function that we've just added. So that is pretty swanky and is pretty fun and cool. We could have this be any piece of geometry that we want. It doesn't have to be a box. Let's grab a different SOP. Let's say, let's grab a sphere. Hey, let's grab another sphere. I'm first gonna make it smaller just so that it's nice and easy to play with. I'm going to make it 0.1. Great. And then I am going to replace this connection. I'm just going to move this so you can see. Replace this connection by dragging it on top of the connector itself. And look, we've made a sphere out of spheres. Now, obviously, it slows down a little bit because a sphere has many more points on it than a box does. So I'm going to replace that. But that's just something to keep in mind in terms of efficiency. But I also can make the guiding geometry out of anything that I want, right? The great thing about having this null here means that I can replace this with anything that I wanted. Let's say I wanted to grab a torus, handy dandy torus, and I can replace this little sphere. And look at that! We have a torus made out of boxes. That is pretty exciting. And again, it's just because we're using this torus as a guideline to give us this t, x, t, y, t, z information, right? But what would happen if I didn't want to use a SOP to get me this information? What would happen if I wanted to drive this based on something else? Well, we are going to look at that in just 1 second. So come around for the next video. And as always, you did an awesome job. Bye!